time to do before and during. So before the job interview, there's some things that you can do, okay? So before a job interview, research the company. Think of it this way. You've given them your resume and they've probably called your references. They've looked at your job experience. That means they've done detective work on you. You need to do detective work on them. You need to know as much about the company as you can before you walk in the door, okay? How big are they? How many people do they employ? Do they just do one thing or do they do all sorts of things? Does everybody work in one place or do they have offices in different buildings all over the place? Know as much about the company as you can, okay? Before the interview. So you know in your head, I know what this company's all about. I know what they do. That you can do online. You can Google and research. Every company has proud web pages to show you what they do, right? And, you know, even if they have a tag, a slogan, a saying, a tagline, if you know it, that's a good thing, right? Okay? Research the position that you've applied for. I had a man, he was about 40, 42, and he applied for a job in Fredericton as a handyman. And he said, handyman? That's a guy who goes around and he fixes stuff, right? Like, you know, works with hammers and tools and things, and I just fix things around. And this was a company that had a whole bunch of different properties, and he thought he'd just go around fixing things that were broken. So he went up for the job interview in Fredericton. And when he came back, we had a meeting. I wanted to find out how it went. And he said, I walked out of the job interview. I said, you walked out? He said, yeah. For that company, the handyman is the guy that takes care of all the porta potties. And he didn't want to do that job. The porta potties, the outdoor bathrooms, those blue, you know, things that are at parks and events and things, the outdoor bathrooms. And this man, he was like, I didn't want to do that job. If he had known that that's what the company was looking for, then he wouldn't have bothered to apply for the job, right? Find out, what am I applying for and what am I supposed to do on this job? And find out before your job interview so that when you walk in the door, you know, I'm applying to do this and this, right? So I know what I'm getting into. And it's got to be something that you're okay with. That you say, yeah, okay, if you pay me money, I'll do this. And know what it is. If you apply for a position, you should know, you should find out how long's the shift's going to be. You know, when you say 36 hours a week, is that 4 days? Is that 5 days? Is that, do I work weekends? Like, find out those things so that you know as much about the position and the hours and the job that you're working for beforehand. So that when you go to the job interview, you walk in going, no surprises, I know what I'm applying for, and this is what if I say yes, this is what I'm going to get. Okay? So, always do that beforehand research. There are common interview questions. There are a lot of people who you will walk into a job interview with and they'll ask the same things as other job interviews. So often at the start, they're going to say, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? They're going to say, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Rule number 1 to remember is they don't care. They don't care that Aunt Betty lives with you and her yappy dog keeps you up all night. They don't care. When they say, tell me a little bit about yourself, here's what they're really asking you. What can you do for me? What can you do for me? That's what they mean when they say, tell me about yourself. So when you answer that question, tell me a little bit about yourself, you answer professionally. Well, I've just come to this country. these are the jobs that I've done in the past. This are the schools I've gone to and the training I've taken. This is what I would like to do with my life. Very professional, nothing personal. Okay? Okay? So remember, when they ask, tell me about yourself, they don't care about your personal life.
Yes, not about family and
And they
children.
don't want to know. They want to know professionally, what can you do for me? Okay? They'll also ask things like, why are you the best person for the job? Why are you the person I should hire? They're looking for things like, you should hire me because I've done this kind of work before. Or you should hire me because this job means you need somebody to talk to the public every day, and I'm good at talking to the public every day. Or you should hire me because this job requires somebody who can stand on their feet for 8 hours. I can do that. You should hire me, whatever the job requires, you should say, you should hire me because I can do what you are looking for. Okay? That's the answer they want. You're looking for somebody to do this and this, I can do that and that. That's why you're the best candidate for the job. Okay? What's your biggest weakness? Often in a job interview, they'll say, what do you need to work on? What's your biggest weakness? That's a trick question.
Yeah.
What's your biggest weakness? Oh, I sleep through the alarm clock. Oh, really?
Amazing. Awesome.
You cannot say something that's going to make them think you can't do the job, but you can't say I'm perfect. I have no weaknesses.
No.
You have to have an idea in your head of what you're going to say. What do you need to work on? Right? It's got to be something safe. You've got to be very strategic when you answer, because you can't make them say, oh, they can't do this job then. Right? But you have to have an answer. You can't say nothing. I don't need to work on anything. I don't need to get better at anything, because, that's not a good answer. Right? I have an easy answer. I always say I need to stay on top of technology because I know in my job I'm going to have to use computers. And I'm an old guy, so I've got to stay on top of it, right? And they say, oh, okay, he knows he has to, learn how to use his computers better and stay on top of what happens with technology, but he can still do the job, which is basically communicating with people, right? So you have to identify a good answer for what do you need to work on. It's got to be honest, but it's got to be safe, okay? And really have it in the back of your head in case they ask this. Also in job interviews, they often ask, why did you leave your last job? Because the boss was a jerk. No, you cannot say that. You always have to have an I answer. You can't say something bad about a job you used to have, even if they did treat you bad, because companies think if you say something bad about somebody you used to work for, you're going to say something bad about us at some point, right? So they won't hire you. You always have to have, why did you leave your last job? Because I wasn't getting the hours I needed. Because I was looking to do a different kind of job because I wanted something that fit my personality. Because I couldn't make it fit with my family obligations, right? I left the job because I. Never blame somebody else, because companies say, oh, if they blame somebody else, they're going to blame somebody else when they're on our job, right? So you always have to, why did you leave your last job? Because I was moving to a new country, or because it didn't fit with my family obligations to my children, or taking care of my parents, or whatever, right? So have an I answer of why you left your last job, okay? Then there are tricky questions called behavioral questions. And behavioral questions are, what would you do if? Okay? And now in job interviews, good hiring people will ask you a what would you do question. Okay? Or tell me about a time question. And these are, they're going to judge how you react when things don't go well. Tell me about a time when you were working with a group of people and one person did nothing. What did you do? Well, I met them at the work site after work and I clocked them. Oh, really? Does that mean you're going to get physical and start a fight here at work? Right? There's a concept called think win-win. And think win-win is everybody feels okay at the end of the situation. So, as an example, you were working with a group of people and one person did nothing. What did you do? Well, I didn't call him out in front of everybody. I pulled him aside, private, one-on-one, and I said to him, listen, we have this presentation to do for the company, and we've all worked, but you haven't put anything in. Can you please step up and contribute something? And the next day, he showed up with some stuff, some information, and we fit it into our presentation, and we did the presentation, and everybody felt good. He wasn't embarrassed, we weren't embarrassed. Think win-win. Everybody has a story of, there was a time there was a problem at work or with my social group or with somebody, and what I did made me come out okay, but made everybody else feel okay too. That's called a think win-win. And if you have a think win-win story, especially a workplace one, where there was a problem at work and the way that you solved the problem made everybody feel good, that's a great story for a job interview. And please, please, either write it down or have it in your head that if they ask me a tell me about a time question or what would you do if question, I'm going to tell them about this time where this happened at work, but because of what I did, things got better. Okay? Everybody has a story where they kind of stepped in and solved the problem. That is really good in a job interview. It's like, oh, they solved the problem and they made everybody feel okay. Nobody felt bad about it. Those are great stories for job interviews. Okay? They really do make a difference if you've got a good think win-win story. Okay? Now, the day comes for the job interview. Always arrive 10 minutes ahead of your job interview. Don't be late, of course, but don't be too early. Sometimes it's a safety-sensitive workplace and they have to have somebody watch you. Or sometimes they're doing a whole bunch of job interviews in a row and they don't want you sitting there staring at somebody else who's going for the same job, right? 10 minutes before your job interview, you walk in. That's the rule, okay? Always arrive alone. If somebody has to drive you, get them to drop you off and you walk onto the property alone, okay? And the job interview starts the moment you walk onto the property, not when you start answering questions. Take a few minutes to relax, get your nerves settled, check your appearance. You have to look as put together as you can. I don't mean you have to look like, a supermodel or anything like this. I mean you have to look like I take care of myself, I know how to dress, I know how to look presentable. That's the thing. Even go into the washroom, look in the mirror, make sure that there's nothing in your teeth, make sure that you're as presentable as you can be. Do those little things. I hate wearing ties. And when I went for the job interview for this job, I drove from St. Andrews here to St. Stephen for the job interview, and I went into the washroom right before the interview, and my tie was over here like this, right? I just, like, I can't see it, but I had to fix myself up before I went in. Always just take a moment to check how you look, because guess what? People judge you. Women know people get judged in the first 10 seconds of whether they like you or not. And in 10 seconds, maybe you haven't even opened your mouth. That means they're looking at all the unconscious body language cues. They're looking at how you present yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to be the best looking guy or the most beautiful woman. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is you have to look like somebody that I would walk over and talk to, that I would like to talk to, right? That means they like you. If somebody from across the room says, oh, I would go talk to her, that's the key in a job interview, is to present yourself in that way. I would walk across the room to go talk to that person, to say, hi, I'm so-and-so, who are you, right? They are looking at your physical presence. It actually is, I'm sorry to say, true, and women know it because they're judged every day based on how they're looking. But men in a job interview, you're being judged too, right? How you look, how you present yourself. Do you look like somebody I would walk over and talk to? That matters. Okay? Always introduce yourself to whoever is waiting out front. Sometimes they're there to watch you. And if you have to sit for a few minutes before a job interview and there's a receptionist or somebody, in the front office, you can bet for sure that they're going to be asked, how did you behave while you were waiting for the job interview? And I had a person not get hired once because of what they did while they were sitting for 5 minutes before they went in for their job interview. They got out their phone and planned a big drunken party for the weekend. And the receptionist could hear this man. And she said, when the boss came out, boss said, okay, yeah, good interview. What did you think of him? She said, he spent the whole time before the job interview planning a big drunken party. Oh, he's not very serious about this job, is he? And they didn't hire him, right? Be professional from the moment you walk onto the job site, okay? So just sit quietly, that sort of thing. Dress appropriate to the job. The rule is you should dress for a job interview so that if they said, you're perfect, can you start in 10 minutes? You can say, yep, I'm ready to go. Or what sometimes happens is, yes, I think, you're perfect. Would you mind coming out back and meeting everybody? And so you're dressed appropriate to the job. So if it's an office job, you would dress appropriate to the office. If it's a work manual labor job, then you don't wear a suit. You wear your best work clothes, clean and pressed, right? You wear what dressing perfectly for the job would be, okay? So that's what you wear to a job interview. Always shave, shower, all those things, but do not wear perfume or cologne to a job interview. There are businesses that are scent-free. People have allergies now to some perfumes and colognes and things. So you never ever wear perfume or cologne to a job interview. Watch out for the smell of cigarette smoke. I don't know if anybody here smokes, but there are people who will smell that and they'll immediately say, yeah, no. Right? They'll have a bad, so just watch out for that smell of cigarette smoke when you come in. Okay? Tattoos or piercings? I don't see much. Has anybody got elaborate tattoos or things like that? Okay. So that sort of thing is a lot better than it used to be, but still we tell people to, if you've got like a shoulder tattoo or something, the day of the job interview, cover it up. Always, always, before you go in, you should be aware if there's a dress code to a company, right? And if there is a dress code, if there are rules, can you live with that every day? If I had a job and it said you had to wear a tie every day, guess what? I wouldn't do that job. That's how much I hate ties. I would say, nope, sorry, don't want to do it. I would not do a job where I had to wear a tie every day. So, know what the dress code is and say, yep, I can live with that. And remember, this might be every day, 40 hours a week. Can I dress like that for 40? Make sure it fits you as a person. It matters.
Yeah.
Right? Does anybody know why we shake hands? Why do we shake hands? Does anybody know where it comes from? A long, long, long time ago, on the plains of Asia, and we're talking Mongolia and above Tibet, that area, there were warring tribes, and they would raid each other, and they would steal horses and steal food, and sometimes steal women and children, and it would go back and forth, and they would raid each other and raid each other. And after a while, some of the tribes said, well, we have a lot of food and they have a lot of horses. Why don't we just trade instead of always, because eventually somebody would get killed in a raid and things like that, right? So the tribal chieftains would meet on neutral ground in between where the two tribes were. And they would hold their hand out and they would say, I have no sword, I have no knife, I am not going to attack you, I am here for peaceful trade. And the other chieftain would do the same thing. He would say, I have no sword, I have no knife, I am not going to attack you. And they'd clasp their weapon hands open, and they'd clasp hands, and then they could make the trade. And that tradition grew and went around the world. And you probably know that in Japan for a long time, they bowed instead. But even now in Japan, they're starting to shake hands. So it's now worldwide. It's just a tradition that has grown in the human race. And you are expected, when you walk into a job interview, you are the one who has to first hold out the hand and shake hands. Okay? Don't wait for them to hold their hand out. You walk into the job interview and first thing you do.
Yes,
first thing you do.
It's like you open in safety,
Yeah, exactly. Okay?
Good.
And I had a guy in St. Andrews who said he did not hire somebody because of their handshake. I said, oh, you got to tell me this story. He said, I got a resume from a young man. He had a university degree. He had all the training we wanted. He lived in Quebec, and we invited him down for a job interview. And he walked into the job interview, and there were two of us. He said, myself and my assistant were doing the job interview, and he walked in, and he shook my hand. And he said it was the sweatiest, slimiest handshake I've ever felt in my life. And he said, and then the guy sat down, and my assistant started asking the interview questions. He said, but I stopped listening. I just sat there going, I can't believe how slimy that was. Where do I wipe my hand? And he said, I stopped listening to him, and I didn't hire him, and he would have been perfect. All his answers were perfect. He had the perfect, training. He had what we wanted, but his handshake. So you need to be aware that those kind of impressions that you leave, body impressions, they matter. Make sure that you have a decent handshake. You can't hold on too long. You're not asking them out on a date. But it can't be short and weak, because then their brain says, oh, they're not confident. They can't do this job. So you have to have a firm, good, women and men, firm, good handshake.
So if it boss woman, it's okay too, because I
Yes.
know etiquette like
Things
is
have
woman must choose.
Things have moved and changed.
Okay.
And now, to me, it is women, men. You
Okay.
just walk up and you just shake hands.
Okay.
Okay? And yes, that's a really good point because it's taken a while to get to that equality. But now it might be one woman interviewing you. It might be one woman and one man interviewing you, whatever. You shake everybody's hand.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm sorry,
All
again
the-
question.
Yeah.
Not in all cultures it's common to shake hands.
There
For example, for greetings, okay, maybe
Muslim, yeah.
in some countries you can shake hands, but in other countries it's not common.
Yes,
They
that's
just
true.
hello, how
Yeah.
are you, and that's it. No
Yeah.
any hands
Yeah.
because it's not common, and maybe they don't like shake all people's hands
yeah.
hands because
And there are
all people different, you know what I mean?
there are some cultural
and you
restrictions,
don't know, and you don't know both.
but I'm going to
which
tell
one-
you,
Yeah.
in Canada, the expectation is that you make that move, seated, or for them to sit down first. It's a sign of respect. Some companies, nobody sits till the boss sits. And, you know, just the professional courtesy of them saying, oh, please be seated, have a seat, and then you sit down. Please bring copies of your resume to the job interview. Always have, don't think that because you sent them your resume that they have copies. Sometimes they just didn't get it together or whatever, or they only have one copy but there's 2 or 3 people interviewing you. Always bring copies of your resume. I say bring at least 3 or 4 to your job interview just in case. Okay? So always have those.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
If HR manager don't offer to sit, can I ask? Hey,
You know what? I'm going to tell you something.
Huh?
I've done a couple of job interviews where on purpose I stood up. And I made the other person that I was interviewing, I made them stay standing. If I'm not going to sit, they can't sit. And I just wanted to see how nervous and fidgety they got if they had to stand. Because guess what? I was hiring them for a job where they were going to have to be on their feet for a while. So I used to run a whole bunch of stores, and there were no chairs and stools for workers in my stores. They were on their feet when they were out on the floor working, right? The only time they sat was on their break. So I did the job interview standing up, just to see how they were when they were standing up. Are you all fidgety? Can you stay still? Can you be calm? Right? So don't just plunk yourself down. Wait until they say, please be seated, or they sit down, and if they stay standing up, there might be a reason. So you stay standing up. Yep. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
There's 2 kinds of communication. There's verbal communication, what we say, and there's body language. Both are equally important, but it's usually body language that we make the most mistakes in. It's our non-verbal communication. And that's what we really have to be aware of, how we communicate with our bodies. So I'm going to talk first about what we say, the verbal. In a job interview, always be positive. Don't say anything bad about a job you've had. Don't say anything bad about people you've worked with, right? You always want to be, they think you're going to have a positive attitude about things. Don't go on and on and on. Be concise, be short in your answers. 3 or 4 sentence answers. Don't go on and on, it's not an essay question, okay? So always be short in your answers. Never ever though, just say yes or no. Always explain each answer. Yes, because, or no, because, okay? Be clear. Here's a problem I've had in the past. Somebody asks me a question, and I'm nervous, and in my head I'm going, oh, I gotta remember to say this, I wanna say this. And they ask me a question, and then I just start talking about what I was thinking of. and I'm not really answering their question. Always, always be clear and answer what they're asking, okay? And if you don't understand, which happens in job interviews, they ask you something and you're like, what are you asking me, right? Say so. Say, did you mean this? Is this what you're asking me? You're allowed in a job interview to say, is this what you want to know? Is this what? Make sure that you're answering what they are asking and that you understand what they're asking. And if you have to pause and be silent for a minute and collect your thoughts, good hiring people understand that, and it's okay to take a moment, collect your thoughts, and then answer. But one thing to watch out for is the verbal tics. Silence is better, right? Just silence while I collect my thoughts and think about what I'm going to say, and then I talk. But I've had lots of people who they have that thing, right? That's really annoying in a job interview. Okay, so yeah, just speak clearly.
I know one man.
Now, nonverbal communication. We have body language cues. People read our body language. Even if you're sitting at a table and I can't see your feet, if both your feet are pointed towards me, it's a sign that you're paying attention to me. I don't know why, but the body can tell if your feet are pointed towards somebody, even if they can't see the feet. So even if you're sitting at a table, women and men, both feet on the floor, both feet pointed towards who's talking to you. It's an unconscious body language cue that you're paying attention. Okay? Now, I hope you can see this. I hope you understand this. When you are speaking to somebody, if you move 2 centimeters forward, I'm into this. This is important to me. I want this job. This matters. If you move 2 centimeters back, I got somewhere to be. 2 centimeters forward, I want this job. I will work hard for you. You are somebody I'm enjoying talking to. 2 centimeters back, I can take it or leave it. It matters. Facial expressions. Always be positive, but don't be a puppy dog. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's super. Wonderful. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Okay? Calm and professional. Companies do not want to hire somebody they think is over-emotional. Okay? If you're telling a happy story, don't look like you've just won $1 million. And if you're telling a sad story, don't look like your dog just died. Just be calm and professional. Okay? So those are the body language cues. If you talk with your hands, again, it's a sign of being too emotional. If you're like big and broad when you talk, keep your hands within your body space. Okay? Little, body language cues like that, they matter. Okay? So that's how the job interview goes. During a good job interview, they should say to you, do you have any questions? Never say no, I don't have any questions. Always have some questions ready to ask. Okay? Here's some good questions to ask in a job interview. If you hire me, what would a typical day on the job be like for me? What would a regular day at work be like for me? Oh, well, you would do this and this. We would expect you to do this and this, right? Always ask those kind of questions. Ask what you're responsible for. What are my responsibilities? Am I responsible for money? Am I responsible for locking up, setting security alarms? Am I responsible for telling people who've worked here longer than me what to do? Always know what your responsibilities are, okay? Always ask if they take part in any community events. Companies love if you ask that. And they say, oh, we do the Terry Fox Run each year and we raise money for cancer cure research. Oh, well, if you hire me, I'll take part every year. I'll do the Terry Fox Run. Oh, really? Okay. Always ask about their community involvement. Do you take part in any community events? And always in a job interview, ask when they're going to make a decision about hiring. Often I'll talk to somebody and I'll say, how'd the job interview go? And they say, well, job interview was 5 weeks ago. I guess they must have hired somebody else. Well, did you check? Did you ask? Find out, right? Get feedback. Before you leave, make sure you've got contact information of somebody and say, even if you don't get the job, get feedback and say, how did my job interview go? And yes, sometimes you're going to hear something that you don't like, right? But sometimes it's something easy to fix. Oh, we liked you. You were really great. We would have hired you, but you just don't have this one course. Oh, okay. Well, the next time a job like this comes up, maybe I'll look at getting this course and maybe, I would get this job the next time around. Sometimes it's something easy to fix. So get feedback, find out what they thought of you, be tough and say, okay, I can take it. Just tell me how the job interview went. Okay? Is somebody waiting for somebody? I'll wrap this up. I'm sure I don't know how much time we have. And leave the door open so that even if you don't get the job, let them know and say, hey, I'm still interested in this job. Please keep my resume on file. If another position comes up, I would like to work for the company. Don't burn bridges. Don't say, oh, they didn't hire me, that crappy company. Because sometimes another opportunity will come up. Okay, so always be respectful and say, yes, I'm still interested, even though you didn't hire me for this position. Please keep my resume. Thanks. Okay?
Thank you.
Last thing I want to say, I'm going to close off my stuff, and I just want to say, social media has become an issue for employers in Canada. There's a cardboard box paper mill, an Irving mill at Lake Utopia outside of St. George. And so far in the year 2019, they have fired 4 people for what they've posted on Facebook. They have fired 4 people because of what they've put on Facebook. Okay? Be careful. You cannot badmouth your job on Facebook. I tell you flat out, companies will find out. Okay? So be professional. When you post on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you use, you never ever say negative things about your job on there. Okay? It really will get found out. And you have to be careful about that. Okay, thank you for your time and attention, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's very
Interesting.
good and interesting.